Hey there.
Hi, Dr. Drew. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So tell us your story to begin with.
Yeah, I'm a survivor of human trafficking as well. That's how I became a survivor advocate after I had the opportunity to be free. I went back and volunteered and then decided to become an advocate in 2 states. I was groomed at age 15. I went to the Vans Warped Tour at age 15, met a photographer there. They groomed me for 2 years. Eventually, I was sex trafficked in West Hollywood before I turned 18. So I was still a minor, unfortunately, when I was trafficked. I was sold for $500. They used force, fraud, and coercion. Unfortunately, that is my story. And also, unfortunately, it is the story that we see predominantly in the United States of America when we're talking about human trafficking, is we can get a grooming process, folks with a pre-established relationship, and that same age demographic when we're talking about female late teen sex trafficking.
And in my experience, the populations I deal with, at least, so often these young ladies, these children, have their own childhood sexual abuse story of some type, or other sorts of abuse patterns in their family of origin, or not necessarily the family of origin, neighbors, who knows from where. And sometimes addiction can figure into it too. That's the other way you can coerce.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that is a little unique about my particular story is that I was not abused as a child. I come from a great home. My parents are still together today. In fact, they're out with my grandmother right now for my grandmother's 90th birthday party. So they're still together. Great family relationship. We're neighbors right now. We all live on the same farm. But I was homeschooled, and that did leave me a little bit vulnerable in the way that I wasn't necessarily 100% how the world worked.
Interesting.
It was like so I wasn't fully exposed. And because I come from such an amazing family, I was just a little bit unaware how the world really was. So
well, in a sense, the sexual abuse took place out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely it did. It's sad that was what happened, but I'm grateful sometimes that it has been my journey, so to speak, and that I've had the opportunity to be free and now talk about it. I mean, to me, that's pretty incredible.
And when you say you're an advocate for human trafficking, or rescuing people from trafficking, where do you focus that? Where is that going on? How do you find out about it? This kind of thing. And what sort of organizations are available to help people?
Yeah, so I'm a survivor advocate for those that have been affected by human trafficking. I always let folks know, because we always say advocate for human trafficking. I don't advocate for human trafficking. I advocate for survivors of human trafficking. Also, I like to steer clear of the word rescue. I'm one of those survivors that, and actually we can talk a little bit more about this as time goes on, but I'm one of those survivors that prefers given the opportunity to be free. A lot of survivors so when we talk about human trafficking, we're talking about force, fraud, or coercion. When we're talking about adults specifically that have been caught in that coercive relationship, a lot of times folks call it Stockholm syndrome or those trauma bonds. We really let the survivor lead the way. We give them an opportunity, if they want to be free, plant seeds, and we walk with them along that journey and practice harm reduction. Now, when we talk about children, anyone under the age of 18, that's where we do have to restrict them from being with their abusers. But I've found, just walking in my own journey and then serving countless survivors, that really a harm reduction, survivor-led experience is a little bit better. So when we talk about,
well, I was going to say, it's so funny that that's the way addiction works too, right? And the rescuing is something for the rescuer, not for the object of the rescuing, because somebody who's rescued constantly then needs to be rescued. Right? They never come to their own aid, come to their own idea of asking for help. They're being swooped out. And that's codependency, right? And that's what we do a lot of. It's hard not to do that when you're around addicts all the time. You want to rescue them. But you're exactly right. It's about showing the way, motivating, supporting, and get them to come to the right place themselves, the right place, so they can be safer if they want.
Yeah, so when we talk about human trafficking, when we talk about situations where force has been involved, then we could talk a little bit more about that sort of rescuing, or when you see those big headlines, 52 children rescued, absolutely under no circumstances can we let a child go back with an abuser. Someone in my case, so even though I did have the opportunity to be free early on from that initial experience, unfortunately, because that complex trauma and that PTSD was already there, I actually chose to go back to a lifestyle later on in life. So it was through a series of events that I was able to get out again. So, so I'm somebody that firmly believes. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about the people that go back, and in my experience, it's again the way I've, there's different ways to frame this, but in my world, we think of it as people getting addicted to the lifestyle.
100%. That's exactly what it was. And I was also, I had a relationship, so to speak, with my former abusers. We call it Romeo pimp or a lover boy pimp. As we know, women can be abusers as well, quite a bit, in fact. But, I felt that I had a relationship with my abusers. A good trafficker, a good abuser will make you feel this way. In fact, they'll even make you feel like it's your fault that you're being trafficked. So that's one reason why it's so important to get out these facts about human trafficking, to get out what's really going on, so that survivors can almost self-identify a little bit faster. One of the reasons that I never stepped forward beforehand was because I thought it was my fault. I thought I was in love. I thought I had a relationship going, and I felt at the time, and it still is this way now, that the media focuses on the little girls in ropes, in chains, duct tape on their mouth, traveling in the back of a semi. And that's just not what we're seeing statistically on the ground. Right. It looks a lot more like my experience.
Right.